Welcome to the Vamos podcast. I am Freddy Rivera, your host. And if you're wondering what Vamos means, it's Spanish for let's go.
All right, welcome to the Vamos podcast from on location from Mexico City. I'm your host, as always, Freddy Rivera, and we're here today to talk about something really powerful, yet something that we don't really think about is questions. It's asking the right questions, because sometimes questions will get you to that next level. Sometimes questions will get you out of that situation or out of that scenario or out of that mindset of just things that you're not really thinking of or thought possible. Sometimes we tell ourselves the wrong answer, which is, I can't do that. That's impossible. Or I could never do that. Or why can they do something and I can't? You're both right because that's your own opinion and you're the master of your own universe, but you're also wrong because if it's possible for them, it's possible for you. So today we're going to talk about questions and the hopes that your actions will lead you to the answers to that question, because life is just one big question and your actions, your habits, and how you live your life is the answer to life. So just picture this, just follow me for a quick second. So picture this. When was the last time you got ready? You put a nice outfit, you put your music on to get ready, pump yourself up. You feel like royalty on your way to the club, on the way to work, to a friend's house, to a backyard boogie, un asado, una carne asada, whatever it might be. And you look in the mirror, you're pumping yourself up and you're saying stuff like, you're enough. You're doing the best that you can in that moment. And that's all that anyone can ask of you, is to do the best that you can in that moment, whether you're struggling, whether you're not getting it, whether you just keep trying. You got to keep trying, because once you give up, that's it. So basically, you gotta not only feel it, but you gotta believe that you're enough, that it's possible. And you gotta ask yourself those questions of, if you don't feel that, how do you get there, right? So let's go back to the scenario. Let's pretend that you're getting ready, you're about to leave somewhere. You're ready, you're looking fire, you're looking like royalty, right? Because everyone's welcome here in the Vamos podcast, in the Vamos family. This is for everybody. There are no kings and queens, just royalty. We're all royalty. So just picture you're ready, you got in your car, put on your seatbelt, and what's missing from that scenario? Think about it. You got in your car, you're ready to go to your backyard boogie, let's say. What is missing? So if you didn't come up with an answer, that's okay. So basically, the answer that I was looking for was directions. Another way to put that would be your plan. What is your plan to get to your destination? To rephrase that fully, let's say, what are your goals and how do you want to get there? Whether you want to get there in a year, in 6 months, in 6 days, in 6 hours. What do you need to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter, next year in order to get there, right? So you would never get ready, get in your car to drive somewhere that you've never been before without punching in the address to Google Maps or Apple Maps. So you always have to be asking yourself, what do I want? How do I get there? And the most powerful questions are simple in nature, because we'll talk about the secrets of success once you have some answers to those questions, but you need to figure those out so that you have your directions in order to get to your destination, because that's really important. Again, we're here in Ciudad Mexico, it's Mexico City, so there might be some background noise, but bear with me. Sometimes questions aren't good to ask because it can be shifted into a better one, because it might be too simple. Like, I want to make $200 by the end of the month. That might be a lot of money. That might not be a lot of money to some people. But the worst part about setting a low goal is hitting it, right? So you need to ask yourself sometimes questions to shift your mindset, because it's important to view yourself, the situation, and the world, such as asking yourself basic questions. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Turn that into, why is this happening for me? And that comes to us from the great Stoics. One of the best to ever do it and lead their empire would be Marcus Aurelius. He wouldn't see a situation as bad or good. He would ask himself, what can I take away from this situation? I've had my car broken into. I've gotten a bad grade when I shouldn't have, or I didn't give it my all when I was going in school and I got a B instead of an A. So instead of asking yourself, beating yourself up and not being kind to yourself, ask yourself, why is this happening for me? So that you learn from it, and then you can kind of better that situation and potentially it never happened again. How can I repeat this experience from this happening again? Or if something good happened to yourself, again, it's great to ask yourself the question, how did this happen? Why is this happening for me? And then that way you can repeat it. If you made a bunch of money on a deal, real estate, selling t-shirts to buddies, you can say, hey, maybe I should go back to the person who supplied them to me, work out a deal, asking yourself something very simple like, who am I? Are you a responsible person? Are you a person who wants to buy shoes, heels, Jordans right now and sacrifice your time in the future? Or you've got to keep working instead of saving? Who am I in the future? Are you a homeowner? Are you somebody that completely just keeps on saying, I'm never going to buy a home? Why don't you ask yourself, what do I need to do right now in order to get a home for me and my family in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is? Rephrasing some questions like, how do I get there? Asking yourself stuff that I heard all the time growing up, like, why am I working 2 to 3 jobs and have all these side hustles? Should I pick one side hustle or should I give it my all to go slightly bigger each time and focus on one thing? Should I change more because I know my product or service and I have a great offering? Or should I just continue selling my product at $10 when the value should be more like 20, $30, right? Because you just want to keep on doing the same thing. You want to stay in your comfort zone. The reason for questions such as these is to push yourself, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to become that person that will get you to buying your first home, that'll get you to buying your first investment property, that'll get you to be a much more better business person, right? So you can ask yourself stuff like, what kind of life do I want to leave? What kind of example do I want to set for my siblings, for my children, for my cousins, my primos? Primos means cousins in Spanish for those that are not familiar with Spanish. And let's keep things simple by saying, what am I doing? And what are the skills that I need to accomplish your goal? Buying your first house, your first rental property, your first investment property, or just buying a cash flowing business. Where do I want to be in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? Where do I want to be on vacation next year? Not worrying about money because you bought your first investment property. You bought yourself a boat that is an Airbnb experience. That boat is generating money, and then that'll buy your Jeep or something that you want to buy in the future, right? Delaying that payoff for now is going to end up paying for your Jeep or your boat or your place in Reno that you want or something like that, right? So asking yourself, where do you want to be in 3 years, or kind of picturing yourself in the future, and then what do I need to do to get there? To give you a quick example, I got recruited to Google from an electric utility company that was about 125 years old. And I set a goal for myself without knowing any of this stuff, but I just set a goal for myself that said, I was 22 at the time, and I said, by the time I turn 30, I want to be making $100,000 a year. Now, to some people, that might not be a lot of money. To me, that is a lot of money. And to a lot of people around the world, that is an exorbitant amount of money, right? But I was 22 at the time. So the goal that I set for myself was to make $100,000 in 8 years by the time I turned 30. However, I hit that goal pretty quickly right when I joined Google, just because you joining tech was my first role in tech, and I didn't think it was possible. I got the job. I got several other jobs after that. And now that $100,000 a year salary goal is not really a stretch goal for me, right? So now what's the next thing and the next thing? And this isn't about salaries or anything like that. It's just more about effort and what it takes to get there. Because once you set a goal like that and you surpass it, it's no longer that huge mountain that you thought you were going to face. Another big question, let's combine some of these questions, right? So who am I hanging around? What are we doing, talking, reading about? Why am I saving all this money and taking no risks? Because risks are everywhere, folks. I'll be honest with y'all. Nobody gets out of this life alive. That's how risky it is. Leaving your house, leaving your yard, getting out of your comfort zone, it's all a risk. Asking other questions, right? Like, how am I going to reach my goals? What are my goals? If you're somebody who asks yourself that question, I really, really suggest just sitting down, piece of paper, pen, and writing down some of the goals you have. Whether it's going to visit my family in another country, being kinder to yourself, whatever those goals are, once you write them down, there are studies that show you're a lot more likely to hit that goal. Like the example that I just gave to you, which was I want to hit $100,000 of salary by the time I turn 30, which meant in 8 years. When in reality, I had that in the back of my mind, and when that opportunity presented itself, it was realized a lot quicker than in 8 years. It was probably realized in like 8 hours or something based off all the interviews that I did with Google and everything like that, right? So why did I choose this topic to focus on, dear listener? Well, because some folks out there ask themselves these questions. because of several different life circumstances, whether it is family obligations, you have children, you just are helping out your family, things of that nature. But you have to ask yourself, how did I end up here? Whether you're happy in your current situation or not, these are powerful questions waiting to be asked, and an equally powerful answer and can make with the way you live your life. For example, I love running. I'm getting more back into it. I find it very therapeutic. I find it very soothing, very zen. I get often asked, I'm not good at running. I suck at it. I hate it. You don't hate it. I think you just don't like that you're not seeing results right away. So asking yourself the question, how do I get better at running? Could be one way. You could do a ton of research, etc., right? Or you can ask somebody like me, hey, how do I get better at running? And I could give you an answer right away. Number one, you work out on your glutes, your quads, and your core. If you do that, you're going to get naturally faster at running. And some people don't like running, work out for a little bit, go out on a run, and I assure you, you're going to get faster just because you took those actionable, consistent steps. How do I become a neater person? It's easy. You tidy up as you go, or you just try to say, hey, is my spouse going to get happy that I picked up my pants, my socks, my underwears, things of that nature? And what is the return I'm going to get? I'm going to get a happy spouse, a very appreciative spouse, and it's going to be a lot neater and cleaner in your home. So you have to ask yourself those questions. Like I used to ask myself the question of, why am I so angry and frustrated with my life, with my job, my relationships? Because do you have the right people around you, and are they supportive of, or acting as a parachute? If you have a parachute on your back and you're trying to sprint, that's going to hold you back. You're not going to create enough momentum to propel you forward. You're also not going to get what I would call escape velocity. I grew up in a place where you not only needed enough velocity to get to your goal, you needed escape velocity so that I could leave behind friendships, people that were just not serving my goals, or they just were very negative towards what I wanted to do. For whatever reason on their part, I don't want to speculate for them, right? But here's another powerful question. What's that one thing that you could do right now that it would make everything else easier? And a lot of people tell me, I don't know where my money goes. I don't know, I can't save money. Well, first step there, what's the easiest thing to unlock everything in terms of saving money? It would be number one, to get serious. That's the first step. It's not doing a budget. It's not any of that. You could do the budgeting. You could do all the software in the world. But if you're not serious about it, it's not going to go anywhere. I can give you all the tools and apps that I can, but if you're not serious about it, and the first time that someone says, hey, the new Jordans are coming out, no disrespect to the Jordans and sneakers, I love them. Jordan's one of my favorite people to follow and learn about. However, do you need that right now? Is that serving you and your goals? I don't know. That's something for you to ask, right, yourself. How do I get a job in tech is something that I often get asked as well. How do I get an internship? How do I get experience if I can't get a job, internship, apprenticeship, to get the experience, to get the job? And a big thing to ask in terms of questions is, who are you listening to? Is it your friends, your family who love you but haven't done what you're attempting to do? Are you listening to that voice inside of you that doubts every single thing that you do? Pretend that that voice inside of you is a person, is your friend. And instead of talking to yourself in a very negative tone, just ask yourself questions. Yeah, this is very scary, but think of the opposite side of scary. What if I'm really successful? What if I make a lot of money off of this? What if this is something that could replace my W-2 income, or give myself time back to spend with my family, my loved ones, my kids, or even visit family in another country that you haven't seen in 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus? And if you didn't listen to that voice inside of you, to that family member that says, hey, it's not a good time right now to buy a house because of the interest rate, that same family member a couple months from now will say, hey, it's not a good time to buy a house because of the prices right now. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no perfect time to do anything. There might be here and there, but if you're not ready, if you're not able to ask yourself the questions of, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do to prepare? Because opportunities don't wait for you. You have to seize them. If somebody's telling you shouldn't buy a house because it's too expensive, the interest rates are too high, it's really a dangerous thing to buy a house right now. A question that I've learned to ask others is, when was the last time you bought a home? Oftentimes my family members say, well, I've never bought a home. Or I asked people, I was going to sell my home in the state of Washington, and people were saying, "Oh, right now is not a good time to sell." So I started asking them, "Well, when was the last time you sold a home? What was your experience like?" Not knowing whether they did or they didn't, but I just wanted to confirm. So then that way, you need to ask yourself questions, and other people ask questions of you. But sometimes people are scared for you. They're coming from a place of love, but you need to ask them a question. When was the last time you did this? How would you have done this differently? Oftentimes, the answers that I get back, I'm not sure about you, but I get answers like, "Oh, I heard it on TikTok. I read it on Twitter. I saw it on Facebook." Again, those aren't reputable sources and they haven't done it themselves. So it kind of puts things into perspective, and that you should keep moving forward. Because if you move forward and you fail, at least you figured it out and you learn from it, and then you can retool and tackle it again and again and again until you get your successful goal. If you found this to be helpful, maybe ask yourself some of those questions. Here are some of the other great questions that I would suggest for you if you're in this space, if you're in this season of growth. It would be, what do you want? Why do you want it? Why is a very important question to ask yourself, because why will take you through those moments when you're struggling, you don't know how to get there, why you're doing something. If that why of yours is your children, your children's future, your sanity, because you're working 2, 3 jobs, not seeing your kids, dropping your kids off with a loved one, a parent, something like that, absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, asking yourself, why do I want to do it? Are you chasing money just to chase money and save it? I don't think personally that's a good why, because money is meant to be used for other things, whether it's experiences, a better life for you and your family, a better life for yourself, travel, whatever it might be. But knowing, having a good why is going to carry you through those hard moments. How are you going to get there? What are you prepared to do to get it? Who do you know that will help you reach that goal? Or maybe who has done what I want to accomplish, whether you know them or not? There's books, podcasts, videos on YouTube. Action Academy is a wonderful podcast that I personally am involved with, and they're awesome. When will you reach it? If you say, "Hey, I want to reach this goal in 8 years," it might take you 8 years to get there. But if you say, "Hey, I want to do this in a year," and you don't get it, but you've grown the skills to get you closer to that, because if you give yourself a too big of a time limit, then it might take you that whole time and you feel good because you met that goal. However, you could have done it in a lot shorter time. So I would say the last questions I'll leave you with is, number one, when are you going to start? What's holding you back? Who is holding you back? That might be people in your family. They're coming from a place of love. They might be scared for you, but you have to ask yourself, when are you going to start? Because that's sometimes the hardest thing that you need to do. If you guys found this helpful, let me know by reaching out on Instagram at the_Vamos_podcast, the Vamos Pod on YouTube, or leave us a 5-star review. And I would love to hear from you on what are you going to do to reach those goals, and how this questions episode helped you. You can email me at Fred, that's FRED, at vamosenterprises.com. And remember, you have to ask yourself before you receive, because as it's written, you have to ask and ye shall receive. So you have to ask those questions of yourself, of your circle, and of your loved ones. And you have to make that determination for yourself, because action, consistent action, and your habits are what's going to get you there. And continuing to ask those questions of yourself. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's not great to sit down and plan for the future, but if you're not going to do it, life is going to do it for you, and you might not end up in a place that you enjoy, you like, or maybe you might be frustrated by it. So this has been the Vamos Podcast with me, Freddy Rivera. Nos vemos, un abrazo y nos fuimos, nos vamos.